guys. Good night, morning, afternoon, whatever time zone you're in. I greet you with the love of God. So, yeah. This is something that was kind of inspired by another woman of God. I forgot the name of the ministry, but I know her name is Ray. She's an amazing woman. She's also a standard, and I love her. Something that she talked about was basically how your spouse shows up when expressing themselves to you. So me personally, for example, I'm more of an expressive person. Like I can tell you how I'm feeling. I can express my love to you. I'm very outwardly expressive. I'm very affectionate. I'm very touchy feely. Like I've always been like that even since I was a kid. I've always been loud in my love, is how I like to say it. Loud in my love. And a lot of times in life, you can have this expectation where you expect your spouse or expect your person to show up the way you show up. So me personally, I'm more of an ambivert, leaning more towards the extroverted side, but I'm more of an ambivert. And so for me, I can make friends with strangers. I've been like that since I was a kid. But my particular spouse, he's more so he's very introverted. He's very reserved. He's very quiet, which is one of the things that I love about him. I don't know why. It's just something about his demeanor that's just very sexy. And chill out, y'all. Sexy, it's okay you can love God and be sexy. I promise. It's not the devil's work. But he's more so reserved. He's very laid back. He's more so to himself. He's not he's very, I would say very, I don't want to say choosy with his words, but I'm trying to find the right words. He's very analytical, if that makes sense. He's a thinker. He's a processor. So he's more reserved in that way. So a lot of times when I would look for ways in which he would communicate with me, I'm looking for this huge outward communication. And that's not how he shows up. He communicates in subtle ways. And I had to learn to not take that for granted. So this word is appreciate the subtle ways in which they communicate. If you can learn to appreciate the subtle ways, you'll make them more comfortable to where they feel like, hey, I can really outwardly express myself. A lot of these spouses have been through relationship trauma. A lot of these spouses have been through hurt, pain, and different things. Not making excuses, but what I'm saying is they've been through. It's good to be understanding, in your walk with your spouse. Like, you can't expect them to show up like you, because that may not be how they show up. That's why they have the 5 love languages. You may not feel love the way he feels love, but nonetheless, everybody needs it. So I truly believe that understanding is a love language. Just to be understood, I really feel like that is a love language in itself, but I'm not gonna go into that. But but he, like I said, I was expecting this huge outward expression, because that's how I am. I love loud. I'm up in your face. I'm like, ooh, I love you, boy. Ooh, you do it for me. It's you. And that's how I am. That's how I am. But he's not like that. At least not yet. Or he doesn't feel that comfort to do that just yet. But he's more reserved. And I realized that he was communicating with me in very subtle ways. And looking back, I wish one of my biggest mistakes is that I wish that I would have appreciated that more. Now that I see it, it's like when he does reach out and he has his little communication and he does these things, now I'm more appreciative of those things, because I see that he's trying. I see that this is how he's reaching out. I see that this is how he is expressing himself. And for me, that makes my day. That makes my day to see him making even the smallest of gestures. I'm not saying in the world they tell you, oh, you deserve this, and that. And I'm not saying you don't deserve those things, but I'm saying that a lot of times people want those things without putting in the work. Sometimes you look at these marriages and you look at these relationship goals and you don't know what they went through behind closed doors. You don't know the many years that they had to work on their communication, that they had to work on understanding one another to get to the point that they were today. A lot of people want to just show up and have these amazing relationships, but relationships take work. Look at, this is a perfect example. The word of God says, work out your salvation in fear and trembling. What does that mean? That means that in some way, in shape or form, in your relationship with God, you have to put in work. Faith without works is dead. What does that mean? That somewhere in your relationship with faith, you have to put in work. Even when the Israelites went to the promised land, it says they tilled the ground. What does that mean? That even though they were in the promised land, what did they have to do? They still had to work. They still had to work. They still had to apply themselves. They still had to till the ground. Yes, they were in the land of milk and honey, but milk and honey wasn't going to just flow. They had to create the atmosphere. They had to create the atmosphere to make it conducive to be the promised land. So they still had to do work. And the same thing is apparent for these marriages, and the way that our spouses communicate. So if I can encourage you guys to do anything, this is just a word of wisdom. If I can encourage you guys to do anything, is appreciate those subtle ways they communicate. Don't expect them to come and be like how you are. They may not express themselves like that just yet, or maybe that's just how they are. But nonetheless, maybe they express their love in other ways. Like, one thing that I love about my spouse is he's so wise. He's an amazing man of wisdom. And one thing that I noticed is that how he shares his love. Michael, stop throwing stuff. Yeah, that's my son. He be lit, y'all. He be lit. Why you run? He just be random. He's okay. I be asking why my son do that, and I'm just like him. I randomly scream when I get happy. I'm like, I'm high energy, so I be asking like, where does boy get all this energy? And I'm just like, that's me. He's literally he's me. My son is actually more introverted, but when he's comfortable, he's just like me. Just be screaming. But yes, back to what I was saying. Now he's a great man of wisdom. So because of that, one of the things that he loves to do is he loves to teach. That's his love language. If like I didn't see that before, but now I see like, hey, if I'm struggling in an area, he's really good with like, hey, this is how you do this. And this is how you put these steps in order, and then this is how you do that. So that's how he shows his love. That's how he shows like, hey, I want to help you. I want to encourage you. I want to teach you how to do this. For him, that's him saying, hey, this is me communicating. This is me expressing my that I care. This is me expressing how much I care for you by teaching you this, by showing you this. That is how he communicates. And me personally, I have grown to appreciate that, because sometimes I'm more of a big picture person. I can see the big picture. I can see the full end to the beginning. But the thing that I struggle with is the steps, putting in the steps. And one thing that my spouse is A1 at, the most amazing at. Like, it's such a turn on. He is so good with the small details and how to. He's good with implementation. He's good on teaching how to implement something. Like you can tell him, okay, this is what I want, and he's really good at, okay, well, this is how you get to your goal. Take this step, take this step, take that step. He's like that, and I wish I was like that. So I can probably learn a lot from him. I can learn so much from him in that area. That's why it's like these marriages, you're going to complement each other. I'm good with the big picture. I can see the big picture, but he is really good with implementation, how to implement the steps to get there. He's so silly. He's really good with the implementation on how to get there. What you talking about, baby?
Wow.
Okay. But he's really good. He's really good with it. So I just want to encourage you guys and give you guys a word of wisdom to just appreciate your spouse and appreciate the way they communicate with you. Even if it's not the way that you desire that they communicate, ask God to help you to see. Lord, help me to see how they communicate with me, Lord, and help me to appreciate it and not take that for granted. Because a lot of times we miss out on those little breakthroughs because we're too busy looking for the big breakthrough that we miss the small breakthroughs. We miss We miss them trying to communicate because we're expecting that to be our way. That's how the devil missed Jesus and what he did for us. He was expecting Jesus to come down from heaven and strike the earth and do all this other stuff. But Jesus said, no, I'm going to make myself small. I'm going to make myself humble. I'm going to die for the people that I love. And the devil, when he seen it, he was like, wow, that caught me off guard. Why did they catch the devil off guard? Because the devil was not expecting it. That was the last thing that he thought that God was going to do. That was the very last thing that he thought that God was going to do, was to die for people that didn't even still want him. That is love. And that's something that the enemy could never understand. So don't be like the enemy where you miss the opportunity to see the move of God, to see the small breakthroughs. And I look back on so many encounters with him, and I see those small breakthroughs in our interactions. And I look back and I wish, like, man, I wish I would have known what I know now, because I could have really appreciated the presence of those interactions. I could have really enjoyed those interactions. Like, even now, God is reminding me, he's really like stirring up my mind. My memory. He's reminding me of so many interactions that I've had with him, and so many small things that he's done to interact with me, and how I not necessarily missed those things. I peeped it, but I didn't really appreciate it. That's why it says in the word of God, in all things I have learned to be thankful. I've learned to be content in having much and having little. So you have to be content in having much and little. And that's not just in communication, that's in anything in life. If you don't appreciate the small blessings, how can God trust you with much? It says in the word of God, to much is given, much is required. God says, don't despise don't despise small beginnings. You have to appreciate the small before you can appreciate the big. Before I could appreciate the big miracles, God took me on a walk in my daily life where I was seeing small miracles. God was taking me to a point in my life where I was seeing small miracles. And before I could see any big miracles like healing, restoration, I was seeing small miracles. Before I could even see anything big, God made me, because I had to appreciate the small miracles. Sometimes a small miracle is as simple as, God, I am healed. Like, my ankle was hurting, and Lord, I asked you to heal my ankle, and my ankle is healed now. I no longer have the pain. Or, God, I was sleepy and you woke me up this morning. Lord, I felt horrible going to bed last night, but you gave me energy. You woke me back up. You kept me and my son alive. You helped me to get through my day. God, thank you for the job that I have. Thank you for the small things. The small things is what matters. You don't want to take for, and even that's not even just with our spouses, that's what God in general. I never want to take for granted even the small things that God does in my life, because those small things really do make the difference. Those small things really are life-changing. So let us not just pray that we don't take for granted the small communications that we receive from our spouses, but let's also pray like, Lord, I don't want to take for granted the things that I receive from you. Lord, I don't want to take for granted, Lord, the things that I don't want to take for granted, Lord, the small miracles that you do in my life. God, help me to be grateful in all seasons. Help me to be grateful in all seasons in whatever you do in my life, and help me to be grateful for the communication between me and my spouse, whatever that looks like. And so ask God to show you, how does my spouse communicate with me? I just kind of share some examples with you guys on how my spouse sometimes communicates with me, but that's not for everybody. Your spouse may drop gifts off. You may not have seen your spouse in years, but he might come get the kids, and then he bring you back something to eat, or or your spouse may text you in the morning, hey, did you make it home safe? And you're just like, man, he didn't even say I love you this morning, but sis, he texted you. He wanted to make sure you made it home safe. Don't take those things for granted. Don't take the small miracles for granted, because those small miracles, those small sprinkles of communications are creating the bigger breakthrough, are creating the bigger line of communication between you and that person. And then too, what it does is it creates an atmosphere of appreciation. Nobody wants to be married to somebody or be with somebody that does not appreciate them. A lot of times they're telling you, oh, he got to buy me flowers and this every day. But what about the simple things like I love you? I'm not saying that that he can't do those things. I'm not saying that. But what if you guys go through a season where he can't afford flowers and all he can give you is the, baby, I love you. Will that be enough for you in that season? Or will you harass this man saying, oh, my friend got flowers, why can't you buy me flowers? And it's just like, well, baby, we can't afford flowers right now. But maybe we can't afford flowers right now. Oh, here you go, baby. Maybe we can't afford flowers right now, but I love you is my I love you is enough. Even with God. So there's seasons where we have all went through where God really didn't give us confirmations back like he did in the beginning. And we're like, man, God, why did the confirmation stop? And God one time I asked God that, like, why did the confirmation stop? Like, God, I feel like, I don't know. And God just like, I want you to trust my word. I want you to trust my word. I don't want confirmations to become an idol for you. I want you to trust that what I have said, it will come to pass. I don't want you to want confirmations more than you want me. I don't want you to want the confirmations more than you want me. So sometimes we'll go through seasons where God will not give us confirmations, where we will just have to pursue God and allow God to reveal things to us, because we'll become so codependent on those confirmations that we'll stop looking for God. We'll stop pursuing our relationship with the Lord. So a lot of times those small things really do make the difference. And nobody, like I said, nobody wants to be with somebody that does not appreciate them, that does not appreciate even the smallest things they do, because sometimes when you don't feel appreciated, you don't want to do nothing for nobody. When you feel like, okay, I feel it underappreciated. So it's like you kind of begin to pull back. You kind of begin to recluse into yourself. And what you don't want is your spouse shutting down because they feel unappreciated. Remember, I know you're like, what they can do for me, but it's not about what they can do for you. When you're called to stand, it's about, when you're called to marriage, you're dying to yourself. You're dying to yourself. Jesus didn't come and ask us, what do you bring to the table? What are you doing? What are you doing with what can you give me? Jesus loved us enough to say, man, I know y'all can't give me nothing, but I'm going to give you everything. That is love. That is love, okay? Jesus came and he didn't say, okay, what can y'all give me? Jesus understood we can offer him nothing. It says in the word of God, our righteousness is like filthy rags before him. There is nothing that we could have done for Jesus. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But yet he still chose to die. He still chose to die for us. And he died to himself, making himself so small, so humble, so minuscule, so that we may have a chance at victory in him. And that is how it's supposed to be, even in these marriages. So with that being said, I love you guys. I hope this was a blessing to you, and bye.